Joshua Smith here, and welcome to the GSD Mode Podcast. Now get shit done and smash that subscribe button now. All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast. And today, guys, we are joined by a special guest, an absolute badass. Our guest today, Spencer McDuffy. Before we jump into what Spencer's doing and pick his brain and have him share all the amazing things that allow him to kick ass, let me just give you guys a little bit of so a little bit of background and the success that he's had. So Spencer's only been in this industry for a short blip of time, man. This just jumped into business a couple years ago, but it hit the ground running, man. Like out of the gate, started crushing it, which is really unheard of in this industry. Even when I'm speaking to like the top in the industry, it's very common that they struggled for the first couple of years before things started to click. And Spencer crushed it out of the gate, man. 44 deals his first year, second year, 67 deals. So 111 deals in his first 2 years. And just crazy momentum. And now it just continues to expand on that. So really stoked and honored to have Spencer on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, what's going on, sir? Thank you very much for having me on, man. It's very cool to be here. I've been watching the show for a long time. Yeah, no, man, I'm stoked, honored to have you on, man. I love hearing, just hustlers like yourself that jump into that because look, when I say hit the ground running, it's not like you had success handed to you. It's not like it takes a tremendous amount of work and a tremendous amount of focus and a tremendous amount of discipline and, to go out there and do it. But it shows that it's possible, right. And it's like, we know the dropout stats of our industry, 90% of realtors don't make it beyond 3 years. And, that first and even that second year can be so difficult for so many. And, so I'm really excited to jump into this. And also, I was like, okay, I had a good, first year and second year, very similar to yours. I did, 48 my first year, so forth. But dude, that was in 2005. The game was different, right? Like if you look at the average person today is sold over 4,000 times a day from a commercial standpoint, right? So like the internet and social media, like there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook, right? So we weren't faced with some of the same challenges that we are today. It's such a noisy world. And, so I'm really excited to dissect and learn like how you create this success in this crazy world that we're in, man. So before we jump into that though, I'm always intrigued in our guest's journey that led him here in the first place. So wind the clocks, dude. Like what'd you do before you got into real estate? And then why real estate? What led you to real estate? Yeah, 100%. So whenever I got into real estate, I actually came obviously from somewhere else. So I'm about 28 years old and I went to college and kind of had a starter career somewhere else that I didn't end up sticking with. So after I graduated college, I just had a business degree. I got my just bachelor's degree and really struggled to kind of find a job, looked at some different opportunities, ended up by random chance in accounting. And just because a friend of a friend kind of knew someone in the accounting department and I got my first job there and I was like, well, you know what, if I can get my CPA license, then I'll make a ton of money, 6 figures or something, and at least have that opportunity to make, at the time what I thought was a lot of money. So I ended up enrolling into the University of Texas at Dallas accounting master's program there to try to make it to where I could progress through that field a little bit easier because my background was in business, not accounting, although they're similar. Accounting is a very specialized degree. So I spent a couple of years at UTD Dallas working on that. And I ended up moving to Florida, relocating to be with my girlfriend. And I ended up taking an accounting job out there after getting ground down on that process for about 5 years of working all the time, making, no more than $50,000 ever, but working like 60 to 80 hours a week consistently, not getting paid off time or getting paid off time, but not being able to control my income in any capacity while working a lot and not being able to get overtime and things like that. I eventually got sick of it. And whenever I moved to Florida, I actually was just trying to find a way to make some money. So how I got into real estate, I started listening to Bigger Pockets podcast like way back in the day when I was just trying to figure out how to make like an extra $300 a month because I was that broke. I always tell a story that, when I got my first job, I was so pumped. I got my first apartment. I was living on 40, 50K in Dallas, like living it up. And I went to go buy a TV and I was very conscious of my budget. And when I got home and I had a TV set up and I kind of looked at my budget and my receipts and stuff, I was like, man, I got to take this TV back. And so I just got sick of being broke and not having an ability to kind of scale my income. I always felt like I had the ability to earn a lot of money, but the accounting world just never really allowed me to do that. So I started taking in tons of bigger pocket content. I thought I was going to be a big time investor and do a lot of this stuff. And that's kind of the road that I started down. I bought my first house in Tampa, Florida when I was like 25. And bought it off the MLS, flipped it using personal loans. I had an FHA mortgage on it and used personal loans and credit cards to flip this house. Don't really know how I made it out alive on that because I was, horribly inexperienced. But ultimately, we made some money on that deal. And after going through the purchase process and going through the listing process with my agents, I just felt like it was a really fun thing. There was a lot of challenges in both transactions that I had to be a part of, even because I wasn't the agent. I still had to be a part of getting it all solved and fixed. And I saw the money that my agents made, particularly on the listing side, and they actually made more money than I did. And I was like, okay, I think this is, I think this is the route that I need to be going is getting into the whole real estate agent thing. So I got my license while I was still in Florida. I went ahead and relocated back to Texas. The craziest thing of the whole story is I moved in with my mom for approximately a year at 28 years old after having been kind of a independent adult, making some money, having a salary, having a place and all that. And bit the bullet, moved in with her for a year, lived rent free, and I just grinded. And that's where I started my real estate business was from my mom's spare bedroom at 28 years old.
That's well, and look, man, I mean, sometimes we gotta, not listen to our ego, not listen to our pride, right? And make those big moves, even though like, hey, my friends might say, make little jabs or whatever, but that allowed you put yourself in a position to go out there and win because that allowed you to jump into this full time,
right?
Not have that added stress of making rent, making mortgages, whatever. And to be able to give this that focus, man. So I love it, dude. So now you're back in Dallas. Like, are you in specifically in Dallas or?
I'm not actually. I'm in a tertiary market. Kind of people refer to it as Texoma area, so it's the Denison and Sherman area of North Texas. It's about an hour north of Dallas. So it's a much smaller market than Dallas. It's kind of a rural area. I mean, it's not like farmland everywhere, but it is definitely a small town feel. And the average price point is probably about 180,000, give or take. Population size of my particular city is about 25,000, and we have a neighboring city that's about 45,000. So it's definitely a small town. We're about an hour north of Dallas. And I just decided that being from here originally, it would be a little bit easier if I moved back to where I was from and took advantage of some of the reputation and the network that I kind of already had existing in my hometown.
Yep. Love it, dude. That's awesome, man. All right, dude. So, okay. Now you're licensed back in Texas. Do that, like you get licensed, and we all know the issue with real estate school, and it's no different. It's not real estate. It's no different than college, right? It's like, okay, they might prep you in your CPA school, whatever, like the laws and whatever, but it's not then like, how do I go out there and get clients and how do I get
right?
Paid? Right? Yep. I mean, that's just old school. But you get licensed, dude. Like, what do you do right out of the gate, man? Because again, dude, like to do 44 deals in your first year, right? Like you got to start with that right momentum right away.
Yeah, 100%, man. So there's a lot that I did that I think most agents don't do, because I talk to a lot of new agents who have heard what I've done and they come to me and they want to get going. And the path that I took was a lot different than what the average real estate agent's path is. So first and foremost, I'm a huge proponent of podcasts. And one of the great things about being an accountant, although I don't think the list is very long for most people, there is a great thing about that job, which is you don't really have to talk to people every day. So when I was at the office in Tampa, Florida still, I was working on my spreadsheets, doing my accounting stuff. I had my headphones in and I was totally okay for 8 hours a day, right? I never had to talk to anyone, which was kind of nice, on days when you don't feel like talking to people. But the greatest thing is I had an opportunity to listen to, this podcast in particular, as well as, Pat Hyben, Real Estate Rock Stars, Real Estate Uncensored, a ton of these different podcasts. I was listening to that stuff for like 8 hours a day, literally while I was and I did that probably for an entire year. And I was always listening to the shows that said, brand new realtor sells 100 houses in his first year, or, second year realtor goes from 50 units to 100 units. Like that's all I was pretty much listening to for a whole year straight. And what I pretty much realized is there's some definite common themes between all these first year agents who are selling 50 or 100 deals a year. And I basically, I just committed to taking that knowledge that I gained from that 1 year of listening to all those podcasts and said, okay, I listened to all this content. I see the commonalities. Now I have to pull the trigger and be in common with those people who already did those things. So before I already got licensed, I knew I was going to be doing expired listings. At least that's what I thought. I thought that was a great, something that a lot of top producers had gotten started doing. So I figured, okay, I'll do expired listings. I'll do for sale by owners. I was listening to a lot of Gary Vee and learning about like Facebook and stuff like that as well. And I pretty much kind of had like a solid framework of, okay, well, what does it mean to call the expireds? What kind of scripts do I need? I was already practicing scripts and doing role playing of listing presentations and expired listing appointments before I ever even got licensed. And I hit the ground running with really just a solid amount of knowledge, I think, compared to what the average agent has, because yes, the school teaches you how to go out there and do contracts, I guess, to some extent, but they don't teach you much about that. But I spent a ton of time on how do I get clients? What am I going to do? What's my business plan going to look like? And that gave me a huge leg up. But in addition to that, one of the things that I noticed about some of these brand new agents who were just crushing it, right out of the gate, a lot of them had coaches. And so actually a week before I got licensed, I actually hired a coach, I guess I should say. And we had our first coaching call 1 week before my license was officially active at EXP. And I was taking everything that I kind of already learned on my own and put it all to a coach, and it really just took off from there. I mean, I was very scared to pull the trigger on a coach at $1,100 a month or whatever it was when I was brand new and living at home with my mom, right? But it was monumental for me. It was a game changer, because even though I had that knowledge from listening to the podcast, my coach helped me to implement it and refine it and to build off of it.
Yep. No, yeah, man, it's just straight gold, man. I mean, dude, history is proven that it favors, right? Or it favors he or she that's most prepared, right? And so you were preparing to be prepared to go out there and execute. And so then, you got licensed, dude, you're hitting that ground running, you got a plan in place. And dude, yeah, I mean, to go out there and commit to $1,100 a month before you even license, I mean, that takes balls, man. It takes guts. Right?
I was scared, man. I really was scared, but I will tell you, my coach just changed the game for me right out of the beginning. I mean, within my first or second month of getting a coach and getting fully licensed and everything, I was setting like 8 listing appointments a month, brand new.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. All right, so then let's pivot and transition to that, dude. Of okay, you're hitting expireds, hitting like you got your plan in place, right? And look, having plans in place are great. The hardest part is executing on those plans. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. There's no shortage of information, knowledge out there. It's the hardest part is taking action on those. So, kind of walk us through that, dude. Like your first month, you're starting to set 8 listing appointments or whatever. Like, what did your days look like? How did that look?
So I did it all the traditional way. I mean, I really just took everything, all the knowledge that was out there on Stitcher and SoundCloud and these different sites that put all this information together. And I pretty much went to my coach with it and said, this is what I'm thinking. He said, yes, let's do exactly that. But as far as what my day looked like, I really tried my hardest to be very regimented and kind of stick to a Mike Ferry style of, approaching my day, and I actually wasn't even coaching with Mike Ferry, but I just really loved his content that I was always taking in at the time. And so for me, it was, my goal was to be up at 5:30 every morning, get my workout in, do my visualizations and things like that from the Miracle Morning, and then just hop straight into hitting the phone, doing a quick role play session, which role playing was, again, one of those just monumental things that allowed me to get really good on the phones really, really quickly. I remember just hilariously laughing the first time that I tried to role play and how nervous and scared I was and everything. But I really committed to that. And I will say over time, I wasn't really ever the guy that was like super, super disciplined to the fact that I was always up at 5:30. I was always at the gym. I was always making my calls, but I feel like I was consistent, maybe 80% of the time, maybe 70% of the time. And for me, I just realized that was kind of maybe not enough. Obviously we should be 100% committed to the goal and everything like that. But I found that it didn't require so much rigidity of waking up every day, hitting the phones from 8 to 11, time blocking to an extreme. I found that I could have success without taking it that extreme. So over time, I kind of laxed that up a little bit and kind of prospect when I feel like it and things like that now. But ultimately, I think that's what had a huge impact on me in the beginning, is I was relentlessly prospecting, anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a day when I was brand new. And that was just like you said, the expireds and the FSBOs mostly.
Yeah, love it, dude. So I got a question for you on role playing. Because I've never been a role player. Right? Like I'll role play, and this might sound weird, but like I'll role play by myself, right? Like meaning, okay, hey, like when I realized that I need to up my game with my listing presentation, okay, every single night after I worked my ass off, got home, saw the family for, an hour, they went to bed, I set the listing, my kitchen table, I visualized that I had a seller on the, sellers on the other side, and I'm just going through it and just, like role playing in that manner, really just practicing. And there's no right or wrong, but my philosophy with role playing is, okay, if I'm going to role play with somebody, why don't I just get on the phone with these expireds, right? And then, but mentally I was like, well, this is just practice, right? But then if the practice goes well, at least I'm popping an appointment and so forth.
I agree.
So with that being said, though, and I'm not trying to diminish the power of role playing, because it is, it's, like you've proven that it's powerful, and I've heard from others that it is, but I believe that it's something that needs to be done right. Like what would be your top tips if somebody's looking for a role play partner or wanting to role play, like how to structure it where it's effective? Because a lot of times it can just turn into a colossal waste of fucking time and a joke and.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's huge, and I think it's powerful. And I've definitely met some people who aren't big into scripts and in dialogues. And Chauncey Pham, actually, you had her on your show, actually. And she's not a big fan of scripts and that kind of stuff either. But for me personally, I am, again, just because I listen to so many podcasts of people saying, you have to learn how to have the conversation of real estate. You have to learn to talk to the expired. You have to learn to talk to the FSBO. And my whole thinking is, hey, I'm just here to do as good as I possibly can in the shortest amount of time. I don't want to reinvent the wheel here. I just want to figure out what works for other people and do it for myself. But as far as for tips and practice, I think a big one that people don't realize is that you're practicing being successful. So when you're a role play partner, you really want to make sure that you're allowing the person who's practicing their skills and setting appointments to actually set the appointment. You don't ever really want to end a role play session having failed, in my opinion. You can be really tough on people and you can give them the craziest objections in the world, but ultimately the goal is to set the appointment, and that's what we should be practicing, in my opinion, is actually setting the appointment and learning how to overcome those objections. So if you're a role play partner, if you're role playing with somebody and they just totally shut you down, like hang up on you or just do something extreme that doesn't result in you getting the appointment, I think at that point it's kind of a waste of time. You want to be dealing with some actual solid objections. You can either, prepare what those objections may be up front that you want to practice that day, or just kind of wing it. But ultimately, I think you want to practice being successful and not end your role playing sessions having not set the appointment. That's the whole reason that we're there. That's like going to the gym to shoot basketballs and you practice missing.
Yep. No, I love it, dude. So then, we got to treat practice just like we're playing, right? Because how we practice is how we show up on the field, right? So I'm sure when Tom Brady's and there's stories of Michael Jordan, like during his practice where, like, dude, if people were fucking around, like he would lose his shit and like he practiced like he played, right? But that allowed him to, play at the level he did. And, I'm curious with, because you spent so much time learning from people and so forth and doing all this preparation, but there still can be that fear of, well, I'm new. And then it's hard to really practice. Not that you can't practice writing contracts and so forth, but everybody's situation's different. And there's a different element of that, of actually being face-to-face with a real customer. And, did you have any kind of fears or that fear of being new, right? And what are people going to think when you're new? And if so, because I know so many people have them. We have a lot of listeners that are new or listening to this to get into real estate kind of like you did. Like, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, no, that's definitely real. And I don't think there's any amount of practice that can really take that away 100%. I think it's something that you're just going to have to deal with. I'll never forget one time when I called a for sale by owner and I was talking to him and he basically said, I don't want to list my house with a real estate agent. Anybody can sell a home. It's easy. You just list the house. You guys don't do anything other than that. And I basically was like, well, I understand that and it makes sense, but didn't you just tell me that your house has been on the market for like 400 days? And he got pissed and he hung up on me. And I was like, wow, I am new at this and I suck at this. But ultimately, I think for me, what I just focused on the process, and I just knew that if I just banged it out and practiced my skills enough, that I would start setting appointments. And I tell you, it's a 100% correlation between doing my role play with my coach, role play with some accountability partners, practicing some specific objections that may come up repeatedly, like I need to think about it, or, I got to check with my wife or something like that. And, the more that I just practice setting those appointments, the more I found myself being aggressive on the phone, not being as fearful, and really just going for it. And I think that the only thing that can keep you from feeling nervous, even now, 2-3 years later, I still feel nervous sometimes before I make my first call. Typically it goes away pretty quick after you get kind of back in the groove, if maybe you've been on vacation or something like that. But I don't think that there's nothing to fear. I mean, worst case, they're just going to tell you stop calling me anymore, and you can stop calling.
It is so true. And it's so funny how, because I had massive call reluctance, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a long time. And to be honest, I still do today, right? Like I haven't overcome the fear. I've just learned how to face it and take action anyway. And, but the stories that we make up in our heads of how nasty this shit can go, it never turns out to be anything like that. And
100%.
So I'm curious, man. So you're pounding these expireds, pounding these FSBOs. Did you, kind of identify that one was more fruitful than the other, where then you pivoted more for ones versus the other for you?
Yeah, no, 100%. So basically, when I got started, my first listing that I took was actually a for sale by owner. So I was really trying to hit them just as equally as possible, and whichever one that would pick up the phone and talk to me. I think they both have their downsides, and I think they both have their benefits. I think the FSBOs can be a little bit easier to get on the phone. I think the expired is a little bit easier to get a nice commission, where they're not so commission focused as the FSBO is, but sometimes they're more reluctant. They might be getting beat up by a bunch of people calling them, and they're very unhappy with their previous experience, which they're then maybe casting that experience on working with you in the future and what it will be like. So I think they both have their ups and downs, but I think for a brand new agent, I think they're both some of the best actual lead sources that you can work, because they're cheap, they're readily available, and these people are pretty much, they're pretty motivated typically. For sale by owner's house already on the market, expired listing has already been on the market. And so I would say one of the conversations that my coach had with me that I have with a lot of new agents that I'm mentoring is, when you're brand new, we have to focus on kind of the bottom of the funnel. We have to focus on that low hanging fruit, and the expireds and the FSBOs are like the best example of getting licensed and being able to take a listing in 30 days. Like, it's very hard to do that with another listing source, in my opinion. Maybe if you have a huge fear or something like that, but I think if you're young and you're just getting going, you probably don't have that sphere there. If you're in a new town, you obviously don't have that sphere. But working those FSBOs and those expireds, man, you can literally be setting a listing appointment for 2 weeks after you get your license.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's one that's really better than the other. I think they're both very similar to each other. Actually, I don't think you should look at them really separately. I think most people should probably look at them together as, the two components that can make up the kind of bottom of the funnel lead sources.
Yep. 100%. And what I love about this industry is everything works, nothing doesn't. We're not like a solar panel, door-to-door salesman where our only option is to do door-to-door sales. Like, one thing I've learned, dude, if you line up the top 100 real estate agents on the planet, they all have different methods that they get their lead, so it's just, we all know it all works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. The reason I was asking that question though is, a lot of times I'll see that, people or realtors might just, like, with their skills and their personality, like, they just have more success in one with the other. And sometimes that's not the case. Like, when I bring on a new ISA, for the first 90 days, I'm like, all right, dude, we're going to have you calling expireds. We're going to have we split their day in thirds, calling expireds, calling FSBOs, and then calling Facebook leads, right? And then after those 90 days, outside of data and time to be able to see what the full ROI is on that, but based on, their appointment set and so forth, like, it can give me some indicators of, okay, like, where do I really want to focus their time and attention based on, on and so forth. And so I know that this could probably be a full freaking, 60-hour coaching course that you could create. So, when it comes to FSBOs and expired. So, and there's a lot that goes into it, but, through all your experience with this, dude, what would you say for those that want to go after those? And especially, as you said, new agents, and we talked about this kind of offline before we hit the recording of, like, look, when you're first starting, like, it's unless you have a shit ton of money in the bank that you can risk exhausting and, going through it's a good strategy to start with prospecting, because you usually don't have money, but you got time, right? And as you get busier and busier and busier, you might need to shift from prospecting to marketing, because it's, right? Like, now you have money, but you don't have time, and you can pivot that. But with that being said, man, like, what are some of the when you're mentoring a brand new agent that's going to go after physicals and expires, like what are, your top tips of like, hey man, here's where most go wrong. And here are the top things that you like, if you nail these, dude, you're going to crush it.
Yeah, man. I think the main thing that makes it tough for a lot of agents is just getting in front of these people. Normally that's like 90% of the battle. If you have decent social skills and you've practiced your scripts and dialogues, once you get in front of them, I think you've won like 80% of the battle, but I think getting in front of them is really, really hard. And so, in my particular market, what I found out is there's not limitless expireds and for sale by owners to call. There's only so many. So I guess with the expireds, that's where I started to get frustrated at one point. And I was making my calls, 300 calls, 400 calls, 500 calls a day. And I'm talking to, some people that just have wrong numbers, or literally maybe after a 3-hour calling session, I haven't had like a legitimate conversation with anybody. And that's super frustrating. And, ultimately, what it allowed me to do is just kind of adapt because I believed in the lead sources. It had definitely worked for me. I want to say I sold like 20 plus expireds my first year because I was just pounding them out. But I think the main thing is a lot of agents might over focus on the contact method as opposed to the actual person that's on the other end of the phone number. So a lot of people are just going to call expireds, and expireds are kind of synonymous with just calling. But there's 10 million ways to get a hold of somebody, and if all you're doing is calling, we're living in a land where when someone calls you and you get spam that pops up on your caller ID, the likelihood of you picking it up is next to nothing, especially if you're not a realtor and you don't answer your phone all day. Some of these people will never pick up the phone. So I think if you're working the expireds, you got to get a little bit more creative about how you want to start getting a hold of these people. I think FSBOs is a little bit easier because they typically want to sell their home. And so just calling, texting typically works for them. But with expireds, one of the first listing that I ever took that was over $400,000, which again, keep in mind, in my market, it's about 175 average price point. The first listing that I ever got over 400K in literally like within like 4 months of being licensed was an expired listing that I got by DMing the owner directly on Facebook. And so that was just one. And I also got expired listings through door knocking people or reaching out to friends of friends, because I'm a big person who likes to utilize Facebook. And so if I add the expired prospect on Facebook and I see we have mutual friends, because we are kind of in a little bit of a smaller town, I can reach out to the mutual friend and say, hey, do you actually know this person? Is it somebody that you would feel comfortable making an introduction to me on? And that has all of those different things have worked for me. Calling, texting. I've set expired listing appointments with never talking to someone, just over text. And I think a lot of people don't want to do that, because when you're calling the expireds and you're texting the expireds and you're emailing the expireds and you're driving by their house and doing door knocking and you're looking them up on Facebook, it takes forever, to do all that stuff as you're going through your whole list. But the return on that time is very, very good, because I've had people that I've texted, after a couple tries of getting them on the phone, and literally within one text, they're responding, and I'm able to get them on the phone right after that. So I think a lot of people got to vary their approaches to getting in front of these different types of people. And if you can do that, I think you'll have, great success, because it's not the hardest thing is not converting them. It's just getting in front of them.
Yeah, dude, and that's such brilliant advice, dude. So fucking amazing, dude. And hopefully everybody listening is really paying attention and hopefully they understand the power of what you just said, right? Because there's two things that I love about that, right? We got to have a multi-channel approach, because number one, people communicate differently, right? Like just an example, if I were an expired trying to get a hold of me, my phone's on do not disturb mode all day long. If I don't know the caller ID, like who's calling me, I'm never answering. Right. Like I intentionally have my voicemail box full, so you can't leave me a voicemail. Same thing. I delete texts. I won't read them unless I know, like they're in my, I know who it's from. But like you can get a hold of me through Facebook Messenger. You can get a hold of me. Like everybody has different kind of communication channels.
100%.
Right. But the second component to that, though, is, as you mentioned, a lot of people don't want to do this because of the time consumption standpoint. But at the end of the day, it's all time, right? Like, okay, your dialed in ratio per conversion is going to be so much lower. So you're going to either spend more hours on dialing, or you can invest the hours doing this and have a higher close ratio. But because of that, you're not going to have competition, because nobody, like your other realtors in your community that are also calling, like everybody's calling because it's the easy thing to do. They're not doing this other shit. So it allows you to stand out. And I'm sure like whether conscious or on a subconscious level to that expire FSBO, it's impressing them too, seeing that different hustle. And you're like, even before you get to the listing table, you're demonstrating like that your hunger and your hard work ethic. And, so you're already demonstrating how hard that you're working, going to work for them. And, so I love that, man.
And that's 100% true, man. It really is 100% true. I can't tell you as a first year agent how many expired listings I took where when I did my pre-qualification call, getting ready for the listing listing appointment and I say, hey, if everything makes sense, are you guys ready to go ahead and sign the paperwork when I come out tonight at 6, something along those lines, they'll say, yeah, we're 100% ready. I said, oh, well, you guys aren't talking to any other agents, nothing like that. They're like, no, you're the only one that seems interested in taking the listing. You came by the house 2 or 3 times. You mailed me a packet that was nice. And, you're out here door knocking. Like, we want a realtor that's going to work hard, and we haven't seen anybody work as hard as you. So yeah, the listing's yours before I even get to the listing appointment.
Yeah.
And that happens more than you would think, honestly, where I typically will go on a listing appointment. I'll know based off the pre-qual call, maybe 30 or 40% of the time that I have that listing before I show up to the actual appointment.
Yep. So powerful, man. Love it, dude. And you're probably not only hitting them in a multi-channel approach, you're the only one probably following up, right? Like, so many people are the one and done, but like, we know statistically 90% of expireds don't relist in the first 90 days, right? So, or the first 3 months. They might still have a goal of selling, but they're like, dude, I need a break, man. We've been making our beds every day, cleaning the house every day. Like, we just want a little bit of a break, and the fortune's in the follow-up, man. So then when it comes to, because it's so important with kind of the human connection, the rapport standpoint, and, like, not treating people as leads, but understand this is another human being. This is, a mom, a dad, a son, a daughter, just understanding that and treating them in that way. And what have you found that's really important? Whether it's a tonality or whether it's, just tapping, like, to really develop that strong connection, right? Versus just, hey, I saw that your home just expired, you're interested in relist. I know that's not an effective script, but you know what I mean? Most people are just kind of like, I'm calling like just for business. And then that other person is like, well, it doesn't show to them that you care about them.
Right. Yeah, no, I say this all the time. I mean, they have to know that you care before they care what you know. And so I wish I had some kind of magic bullet answer for that. I would say working on your scripts and your skills and your tonality is a very important way to do it. When you call and you're ending your sentences in upswings, do you want to list your home for sale versus having an assertive, do you want to list your home for sale? I mean, those are like minor ninja moves that you can be putting into place to help build tonality, mirroring and matching. These are all things with an effective role play partner that you can be practicing before you ever even hop on the phone. So when Billy Bob down the road, answers the phone and he talks very slow and he's very drawn out and he likes to talk about, the Cowboy game and all this kind of stuff, you're going to talk to him a little bit differently than maybe if you got somebody who's from up north, who's just quick and fast and to the point and just, why are you calling me? Like, I want to know what's up immediately. So I think that's really probably the most effective thing, is just mirroring and matching right out of the gate on your phone calls, knowing if you're talking to an old woman, someone who might talk very slow and just very casual or laid back, versus somebody who's direct and like a busy guy like yourself. I'm assuming if you got called, you may want to know exactly what they want, and you give them maybe 15 seconds to break the ice or move on, kind of a deal. I think something that is way underrated is getting these people on Facebook and posting content that allows them to view who you are as a person without having to be on the phone with them. It's 100% scalable. So if all you can do at a bare minimum is look up this person in the local county assessor website, Mary Jones, she's right here. Add her as a friend, shoot her a DM and introduce yourself. Maybe she doesn't want to do anything right this second, but you're building massive amounts of rapport when you continue to interact with her content. She sees your content, you're posting video, you're showing you're just listed, you're showing you're just sold, you're doing property tours on video and things like that, and you're being authentic and true to yourself. I think that goes 10 times way far and above and beyond anything that could be done over the phone with tonality or mirroring and matching. People can tell if they want to work with you without having to interview you, and I think that's extremely powerful. And I think if more people would get good at posting content that is authentic to themselves on Facebook, and they actually to make the effort to add their leads to their friends list and interact with them, that is a game changer. And I can't tell you how many listings I've taken where people have said, man, I've been following you on Facebook, and I can tell you're the best salesman in town. If you can't sell my house, then no one can. I've had it happen time and time again. And usually when people say that, it's not because I was just so slick on the phone. It's because there was maybe a 60-day or 90-day gap between them wanting to relist, and I'm posting all my content that whole time. And Facebook is basically just like a free drip campaign when you know how to put out the decent content.
Yeah. I mean, I look at social media, at least when it comes to our businesses, it's no different than our real estate business CRM.
Right.
We always got to be just like in our real estate, I know that you follow-up boss, you'd mentioned, okay, I got to make sure I'm always getting new leads in your CRM, or like for me, I use Perfect Storm. So getting new leads in there, but then I'm calling, texting, emailing, right? Well, social media is the same way. And then always adding the right people in there, right? But instead of calling, emailing, and texting, right? Like we're creating content, uploading content, and engaging. It's just our social CRM, man. And, with that being said, dude, I love that strategy, being so intentional with it. So, a couple, just kind of two questions here. Number one, like how quickly do you add them? Like, are you adding them before you call, or are you calling first? If you can't get a hold of them, you're adding. And then the second thing is, just so I don't forget here, is when you're doing your posting, right? Because I'm assuming this is your personal page, and like we want to post business stuff so they can see that, but we want to kind of, if it's all business stuff, people can get burnt out. So what have you found best practices there where it's kind of that mix of business, personal, where, they kind of get to know all of you?
Yeah. So I think there's no such thing as like a personal post or a business post. I am my business all day long and twice on Sunday. So if you're going to talk to me, then there's a good chance that we're going to talk about real estate. And honestly, because I post so much about real estate on Facebook, you're probably going to be the person who brings it up, not me, because people know so to such an extent that this is what I do. I think where people run into is they think business in terms of inauthentic, unengaging, just they think of it as like, okay, this is a business post, therefore it's generic and boring and it can't involve me in my personal life at all. I think that's a bad way to go about it. I think when you're trying to put out great real estate content, you yourself as a person need to be the center of attention around that content. So when you're doing a just listed, just sold, maybe it's around writing your ad copy to explain the story of how your sellers actually felt when they sold their house with multiple offers above list, and what your sellers did that night to celebrate. They went to Chili's, and you get a picture with them at Chili's, right? So now the lines are so blurred between, is this a personal post, is this a business post? I feel like the vast majority of my posts are business posts. I just find a way to be authentic and be myself and tell the deeper story behind just listed, just sold. But like you said, these are real people with real stories and real emotions, and that's what people on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, that's what they want to hear about, is the struggle, the hero's journey, right? The struggle and the triumph ultimately, and the lessons learned along the way. If you can get really good at telling those stories on Facebook, all your posts can be business posts, but you have to be authentic and you have to be real. And I think that's maybe where a lot of people miss the boat, is when they're thinking business posts, it sucks their personality out of them, and it sucks out who they truly are out of the content. And if you can not let that allow that to happen, you can post about real estate, 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, and I don't think anybody's ever going to get sick of it.
Yeah, I mean, like as an example, like, okay, like you're showing this home with this, gourmet luxury tricked out kitchen,
right?
Right. Maybe you do a quick video of it. Hey guys, I'm previewing this home right now for a client, but you got to check out this kitchen. Holy crap, it's beautiful. Check this out, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts, man. If you could have a dream kitchen, would you want this, right? Because you're sprinkling in work, right? But it's not looking to buy or sell, call me. It's not, the douchey in your face salesperson, right? It's just framing it in a different way.
Yeah. I almost never do anything just like a direct, just promotional ask. I mean, if I do that, I'm probably going to do it on my business page. It's probably going to have some ad spend behind it. And I'm going to really try to write some good ad copy and have a good image and stuff like that. And there's a place for those kind of posts. But I think even on your business page, which we're spending a good amount of money on Facebook and running ads and stuff like that for branding and lead gen, I think it's just so important to just remember that people buy from you because they like you. And therefore, if they can't see who you are through your content, then I think you're missing the boat, and you might as well be doing, postcards, because, that's effectively what postcards can do is put out a sales message. But if you want people to know who you are and know, like, and trust you without meeting you, that's where you have to show who you authentically are on social media so that people can get to know you better.
Yeah. How do you, because look, dude, you're busy, man. I mean, you're closing an insane amount of deals. It's not like you have this mega team that like this is you doing these deals, right? Yeah, right. Which, dude, if anybody's watching or listening to this, when you get to the point where you're doing, 4 or 5, I mean, now you're averaging, 5 to 6 plus deals a month, right? I mean, that's an insane capacity, but you were freaking busy, right? In this business, it ain't a job, dude. It's a lifestyle, right? So yeah,
it is.
With that being said, dude, like how do you make the time to go out there and post and engage in social media? I'm asking that because I'm guessing like you have a system that you follow to ensure it doesn't get missed and so forth?
Right. Honestly, I don't really have a system. I mean, I really wish I did have just like and I've thought about creating some systems. And when I talk to new agents who are really struggling with what to do on Facebook and social media, I'll definitely recommend, creating a content calendar to get your wheels turning. And I'll look at some of that stuff every now and then. But what I found for myself is really just if you consider the Gary Vee version of a day in the life or kind of a behind the scenes type of content. I may just be driving by a random restaurant and just stop and make a video, or I may be going to pull my sign out of the ground at a listing that just sold. And I'm like, well, hey, this is a great time to go ahead and make a video. So I don't think it's one of those things where you got to make time. I think it's one of those things where you have to observe the opportunity that you're literally standing in, that you're not creating content around. So when you're going to closings, when you're pulling signs, when you're putting signs out, when you're doing listing tours or, previews of for sale by owners, or literally anything that you do all day long regarding doing your job as a real estate agent, even making calls, you should be a lot of the time just taking a minute and say, what am I doing right now? Would someone find this interesting? Let me go ahead and put out some content around this. I've done tons of posts where I'm like, hey, I'm gonna make 1,000 calls today, guys. So if I call you, don't hang up on me. And people think it's funny, and I'll show them the image of the number of calls I made. They say 679 calls, and people get a kick out of it.
Yeah, I love it.
I think you got to document your day, not necessarily create a whole lot of content, but just document what you're doing and let people see what it's really like to make 1,000 calls a day, or door knock a ton of expireds, or lose a listing. Some of my biggest, most successful posts have been from fails. I made a post one time that got like 5,000 views organically, where I just told this 3 or 4 minute story on video about how one of my clients fired me and just talked horribly to me. And that was like one of my most engaging posts that I've ever made. I also made a post once where one of our clients thought that they were going to get a fridge with a house, but there was no non-realty addendum that was put into the contract. The fridge got pulled from the house. We looked like idiots because we kind of forgot to tell them that, the fridge wasn't going to come with the property. Made a post about that, told the story of how my clients felt and how we overcame it. You wouldn't believe the amount of engagement that we got off of a post like that. So taking these stories that you live, all these struggles, all these things that you're complaining about at your water cooler with the agents in your office, tell other people like how sometimes it doesn't go your way. And people love that because they want to see that you're a human. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and in the world that we live in, dude, like everything, it's the filter. We're in this like filter society, right? Where nothing is as it seems, right? Like one of my favorite memes that I saw at one point was something like my deepest hope for you in your life is that someday your life be actually as cool as you make it seem on social media, right? Something along those lines. And but then, man, you're being authentic, and people are starving for that authentic, that authenticity more than ever. And I'm curious, dude, then, do you, because, okay, you're posting, and I'm sure that you're taking time to reply and engage with those that are commenting.
Oh yeah.
But then like when you're adding those expires and stuff, I think that you said that you're then making sure to take time to engage on their stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, is there a time of day or like, how do you do that in such a way? Like, cause I don't know if you do this, but like in Facebook, like you have your friends list and then you can create categories under there. So you could put, like leads in there to make sure you sort it and just like and comment their stuff on a daily basis?
Yeah, I don't have like a solid system on it. I wish I did. It's actually been something that I've struggled with a little bit on how to do this. I really played around with using Facebook as my exclusive CRM for a while before I abandoned that idea, because I think Facebook is that powerful and social media is that powerful. But for me, I just keep it pretty simple where, if I talk to a great lead, maybe say out of the Red X or a Mojo Dialer, I talk to an expired and I decide, hey, this is a good lead. I want to put him in my follow-up system. I'm going to move them from Red X over to Follow-Up Boss. And then when it's time for me to make my touch to that person, maybe every 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, however many, depending on how hot of a lead they are. If I've interacted with that person a lot, mostly on social media, I'm going to try to stay consistent and hit them where I've already hit them before. So I'm not going to call, someone who I talk to on Facebook all the time. I'm not going to call them out of the blue because that's just kind of weird. Right. So I think basically when their name pops up and it's time to do follow up on them, I just say, okay, well, what's the best way for me to talk to this person? Should it be Facebook? And if it's a cold lead that I haven't really talked to, I'm hitting them from everywhere. I'm texting them, I'm calling them, I'm emailing them, and I'm hitting them on Facebook, and I'm trying to like and comment on their posts. But it's not something where I'm trying to really do it every single day. It's just, if I don't really feel the need to go ahead and make a call to that person, I'm just going to go ahead and make a touch on social.
Yep. Love it.
So
love it, man.
just doing the follow up,
Yeah, and that too, then you can see, I mean, how active they are, how like, is this the best place, right?
Yeah. Some people, I mean, you get an expired and they haven't posted since, June of last year or even in years, you're probably wasting your time even trying to do much with that person. But I do try to DM them. One of the questions you asked, I didn't answer. It's basically I try to just hit them from all angles as soon as possible. So you said, how long do you wait before you try to DM an expired or something like that? Pretty much as soon as possible. And I'm hitting them from every particular, even if I can find them on LinkedIn, I'm going to hit them on LinkedIn, Facebook, if I can hit them on Facebook Business, because sometimes they come to me through Facebook Business. And I don't see any reason to not go ahead and go after them. And sometimes I'll send them the same message, copy and paste. And if I send it to them before they accept my friend request versus after, I'll resend the message after they've sent the friend request, because sometimes not being friends with them will filter your messages to some unknown inbox somewhere where they never see it. So then I'll just copy and paste the same message and it looks like it just duplicated.
Now, when you're DMing somebody, let's just say brand new lead, brand new expire or whatever. Is it like a bottom line upfront, strictly business DM, or is it kind of something a little bit more subtle? Right?
It really depends on how hard it's been to get a hold of this person and if I know that they've been ignoring my attempts, right? So if it's somebody who I know has seen me text them and I know I've seen them open my email 6 times and they're just not answering and they're never being responsive, and they never answer, I may lean in with something totally different. I may go into their Facebook page and see that this guy's a pastor and say, oh my, hey, I see you're a pastor here locally in town. Like, how long you been doing that? Because I'm just looking for any kind of response, right? But that's really few and far between for me. I'm very much business first. I don't care to have chit chat. And if they don't want to talk to me, I'm looking for a no as soon as possible. Thank you very much for the no. And I'll move on with life. I'm not really here to make like a bunch of friends. I'm just here to basically, if I DM someone, I'm basically just going to say, hey, I'm a local realtor in town. I'm reaching out about 123 Main Street. I saw it came off the market. Do you still want to sell it? And that's essentially what I lead with almost every single time. And they'll say, well, I rented it out, which is great because I've been calling them for 2 weeks and they haven't answered. And within 30 seconds of DMing them on Facebook, they're saying, hey, I rented it out. And I spent 3 weeks calling someone whose listing wasn't even available. So I think for me, it's just straight to the point, man. And if you need to get creative with it, you can. But I've never had anybody really take offense that and if it were me and if I was in their shoes, when you're reaching out to me as a stranger, I want to know what's up. I want you to cut to the chase and I want to know why you're interested in talking to me and what it is that I'm not getting, because if you kind of hold it too close to the chest, I think people distrust you. Yep.
Love it, man. You mentioned RedX. Is that the system that you still use that we found to be the best versus like a Vulcan 7 or Land Voice, Espresso? There's many of them out there.
Yeah. So I started off with Mojo. And the only reason I switched over to RedX is just because I was complaining to my coach that no one was picking up the phone. And he said, well, why don't we just try a different system and see how it works out? And I haven't really seen any major differences between RedX or Mojo. I've never tried Vulcan. But for me, the RedX is a very simple interface. It's very clean. It's got the triple line dialer built into it. There's no need for a bunch of systems and everything. And with the multi-channel approach, if I can't ever get them on the phone, I'm hitting them in 4 or 5 other ways. All I really need is their name, which their name is usually pretty easy to find, with RedX or I'm sure any other system.
Yeah. Look, with your approach, I don't know if it would matter, but the biggest difference is, and just like a lot of things in life, you pay for what you get. So Vulcan is, about, I don't know, 5 times the cost or whatever. But it's how they deliver the data, right? So Vulcan goes out, and they get their data through a company that's owned by Experian Credit Union. So, it tends to be, Espresso Agent and Vulcan 7 are actually owned by the same company. Espresso Agent is their slightly watered down, slightly less expensive, platform.
Right.
And I found that Espresso is extremely effective too, but they go out there and get like 5 different sources. Like, okay, well, here's what we deem to be the best current number, but here's, also 5 different numbers that we found in their history. Right. Landline cell numbers, plus you get emails and
right.
But I don't believe they have a triple line dialer built in,
Yeah. And I don't even use the triple line dialer that much because I just don't think it's really necessary unless you're covering like the whole state of Texas, which Texas is huge, right? So I don't really want to call people in Dallas, even though it's only an hour for me. That's just too far. And I've found there to be just an extremely high amount of competition, so I prefer just to stay local. I don't have to drive, that far all the time. And I just hit them one at a time. And I really take my time going through my leads because while I'm making my call, I usually do a click to call, and I can also just go ahead while I have the lead open, look them up on Facebook, see if I can find them real quick, shoot them a DM real quick. And so I don't want to be burning through the list so fast that I can't, take a little bit of time to try to figure out who this person actually is, because like you said, they are people. And if you treat them as people and not leads and phone numbers, you can probably get a hold of them easier than you think.
Yeah. Well, and then like with the triple line dialer, dude, too, there's always that kind of weird, it's seconds, but it's this tiny little silence where like people have been, a cold call enough by telemarketers where they know, it like automatically identifies, oh, this is a cold caller, plus you're going to show up now with, in spam, right. The message, right. Much more than, another option. And so, dude, I'm curious with, okay, so, that allowed you to go out there and kill it and crush it in your first year. And what I love about this too, dude, is you talked about moving from Tampa back to your hometown. Now people might be like, oh, well, dude, he started selling in his hometown. He knew everybody, grew up there, small town. Dude, your business didn't come from like, all the people, like it wasn't like you moved there, got your license and everybody that you just started flooding in. Like this is all stuff that would have worked in Tampa, that would have worked in an area that you were brand new, didn't know a soul, right? So did you do anything different from your first year to second year as you bumped up another 23, grew your business about 50%?
Right. Yeah, I think it was momentum. I think a lot of it was momentum, and you're 100% right. I did like no deals with sphere of influence, and I didn't feel comfortable calling my sphere of influence. And even if I did want to call my sphere of influence, most of them just aren't buying and selling homes. These are people that I knew like since, back in middle school. I hadn't lived here for a very long time, and a lot of them aren't buying and selling houses. But, and again, going back to all the podcasts, I heard so many people say that sphere of influence is limited, expireds, and FSBOs are, more endless. So that's where a lot of people focus. So I never did that. And honestly, I still don't really work my sphere of influence very hard. It's not really something that I enjoy doing. I like to be direct and assertive with people, and with the first sale by owners and the expireds, you can really do that a little bit better. So I didn't really change anything, or as far as going into the second year, momentum really kicked in. I mean, it was crazy. My first year, it took me 3 months to really start getting up and going. And when I say I sold the 44 homes in my first year, that was after kind of a 3-month ramp up period where I didn't sell anything. Obviously, I was taking listings, I was going on listing appointments,
9 months.
But basically. So after that first full year, and that would have been 2019, that first full year, that's when I did the 44 deals, but it took a 3-month ramp up period up to that. So, but as far as that, man, one of the crazy things that happened to me in this business that just shows that, the universe is looking out for you and stuff can come back to you, whether you know it or not. The first listing that I ever took was a for sale by owner. And unfortunately, I never sold the house, and I took it at a reduced commission. I was disappointed in myself because I wasn't able to negotiate a big commission on the transaction, and I never actually sold the house, and I never could get my guy to drop the price and everything. And lo and behold, I ended up showing that property to an investor somewhere along the way. And that investor ended up sending me, over the course of my first 2 years, probably 35 transactions through fixing and flipping and repeat business. And he was paying me a fair wage, to be bringing me so much business. And that totally changed my business. And I always just thought it was so funny that one of the biggest clients I've ever landed, I got from basically a reduced commission FSBO that I was never able to sell. And when I met him, I showed him the house, and he, I actually told the buyer, I was like, I don't think this is a good house for you, man. I just really don't see it. You're an investor. You want a great deal. I know what that means. And I don't really feel like this is what you're looking for. And to him, that was like jaw dropping. And he loved that about me, that I was willing to be honest with him at my own expense. And we ended up doing business for like probably a solid year and a half before he kind of took his business in a different direction. But it all came from that FSBO that I was never able to sell.
Yeah, dude, I love it, man. So then, I know if we fast forward to kind of where you're at now, I know that, still hitting FSBO, still hitting expireds. Yep,
absolutely.
In addition to that, it sounds like now you've incorporated some online marketing. What is the reason for that? Because again, you're in a small town. Like I'm out here in Phoenix, right, which would be similar to Dallas, right, where we have 5 million people. There's endless amounts, right?
Right.
Well, maybe not right now in this extreme low inventory that we're in. It's less and less. But is it to just have another source to keep increasing your capacity? Is that why you added marketing?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. So I added marketing when a marketer actually reached out to me. That was kind of a referral from another realtor, and I had a kind of a free consultation with him, kind of see what he was doing. He was just running a small shop, doing this. It was just getting his business going, and I just really loved everything that he was doing on Facebook and everything. So I said, you know what, let's try it and let's try it out, because I had built my business pretty much exclusively on listings. I mean, any buyers that I was working, I was getting those buyers from sign calls pretty much, or from internet inquiries on my personal listings. And so I was working those buyers when I could. And when I got a great listing, I was prepared to answer my phone and get out there and show a couple houses to people and try to turn one listing into 2 transactions. But ultimately, I just said that, well, I think we're missing the boat a little bit, and we could be growing our business quite a bit by doing some internet marketing and these different things. And so I went ahead and just said, well, let's try it. What's really the worst thing that can happen? I'll take some more buyers, and that's great. But in the process, it taught me that I didn't know so much. After 2 years and selling a lot of homes, there was a lot to this business that I still did not know and I still didn't understand. So keep in mind, before I hired my first social media marketer, kind of third party, kind of freelance social media marketer that I hired, I wasn't using a legitimate CRM that entire time. Only CRM that I was using was Vortex, which is kind of that manual CRM that comes with Redx. And so I was inputting all my leads manually. And once I started working with this marketer, I could see that, like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I can get leads coming into my database. I can have automated text follow-up, automated email follow-up. And so once I started seeing like how the systems and the tools and the processes could do so much more than I ever imagined, I said, oh yeah, we have to double down on this. And right now we're shifting away from targeting the buyers so much. I think we went way too hard targeting buyers with these new systems. But I'm using everything that I learned along the way of how these systems and everything can work to redirect that back to supplement the for sale by owners and the expireds, because the inventory is insane right now. I've got probably 25 pre-qualified buyers who can't find a house that they want to buy. So if we're spending all our time generating buyer leads and showing a bunch of houses, we're just wasting time. And I found myself getting away from the fundamentals that allowed me to grow my business so fast. And so now I'm just trying to reroute all that stuff, but using all that technology that generating online leads taught me how to use, but just redirecting it towards sellers.
Yeah. And the cool thing about online marketing, and this is, a lot of people will sit there, I'll have like agents I'm in conversation with when they hear like Facebook advertising, right? They're thinking about it just from a standpoint of generating new buyer or seller leads. And right now it's not a lot of seller leads or anybody, there's not a lot of people wanting to sell right now. But the retargeting capabilities is insane, right? Yes. Like you could take all those for sale by owners, all those expireds, that you have in your database, do a custom audience, retarget. So now it's just another channel, that you're hitting them with, and you already have them as leads. So like video view and reach ads, dude, are like cost like pennies, right? So there's so many cool, powerful things for this. I know that you've expanded now to having like an admin, right? Somebody to support you with your paperwork and so forth. Is it expanded beyond that? Like, are you starting to, or do you have plans on starting a team and expanding a team? Because look, dude, like you can only do so much, right?
Yeah. It's been interesting, man. It's been one of the big things that's held me up a lot. And in real estate, there have been a couple of things that have just like held me up for way longer than they need to, I feel like. And having a buyer's agent and a team or a full-time assistant, those are all kind of right there where it's like tough to make that first step for sure. But having a TC definitely changed my business, and it changed it fast. So, and a TC is a pretty easy hire in the grand scheme of thing if you can pay them on a transactional basis, et cetera. That's a great hire to make. But as far as building up a big team, that is something that I've been wanting to do and I've been really trying to think about. But I also feel like it's just tough. It takes your attention away from the thing that got you here. And now you're no longer just the listing agent. Now you're the team leader and the trainer and the mentor and the coach and all this different stuff. And if you don't find that right quality fit right out of the gate, I think it can really drain your attention and your energy away from the things that really offer the most bang for the buck. So I think realistically, it's kind of up in the air for me right now. I've never wanted to have a big team ever. The only idea of a team that I've ever had is maybe having, an admin with maybe me as a listing agent and 3 or 4 buyer's agents. But I've never wanted any big, huge, expansion team or anything like that. I think it's too much liability and it's just not fun to me. I like talking to sellers and I like doing my ads and my videos and stuff like that. And it's really hard to be accountable for somebody else's success. And when you can't get that person you can't deliver on those promises for that person, it's not really because you're not doing everything that you could do. It's that, different people have different skill sets. Different people will make it to different heights in their career. And it kind of hurts to be super invested in someone and not see them, not see them do what you hoped or thought that they could do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I love it, dude. And the cool thing about the era that we're in, dude, is like when I started my team, I jumped into the business in 2005, started my team in 2006. And back then, like, teams weren't a thing, right? Like, I mean, there were some that out there, but also, YouTube didn't exist. There's no podcast. There wasn't social media. Like, you didn't have the awareness, right, that's out there now. And, so I started off with a very traditional team and built that, and then that's expanded. But like, if I could do it, like knowing everything I know now in the 16-year journey, everything that I know now, like what I would do and how I would do it differently, dude, is a very small, lean team, dude. Like, dude, you have one amazing rock star full-time admin, is doing transaction coordination, listing input, and helping with, just some other admin activities, right? 2 showing agents, that you can pay, decent, $15-20 an hour too, and then maybe you give them a small blip, 5% of the commission.
Right.
And then, you get the right ISA in there. So then, because that allows you to scale the buy side,
right,
just like the list side. Right. Where boom, all I'm doing is consults all day, listing presentation or buyer presentation. The machine hands off the rest. Well, then that allows you is really an agent just with a support team, if you will, to go out there and do 200-300 deals a year.
Right. And I think that's why I kind of messed up in gearing up the buyer side of the business. I knew I was missing out on 50% of that opportunity that's out there, and we could be doing better. But I think one of the things that messed me up when I did this, and hopefully it will be a tip that other people can learn from, is, when I started scaling up all this stuff, I didn't have anybody to actually be an ISA. I've always been the ISA, so I took that stuff on, just like I would prospect for listings, I would prospect for buyers. I just didn't realize how much that time that really takes, and also how low of a skill level it really is. If you're used to setting listing appointments constantly, working with these buyer leads and getting them qualified and figuring out their timeline and stuff, it was so monotonous because it was so easy. And I found myself just getting way too sucked into doing that. And then I wasn't making my listing calls and setting my listing appointments. So I had to back away from that real quick.
Yeah. Love it, dude. So then, I mean, I know now, like you've gotten into some coaching and some mentoring as well. I mean, what led to that? I mean, you're so damn. I'm guessing it's people see your success and see you kicking ass, and it's why most realtors, team leaders, also get into coaching as they're growing their real estate businesses. Is just because everybody starts reaching out to them, like, hey man, can I pay you to help me with what you got? So I'm assuming that's what led to it, but how did that begin?
Yeah, that was exactly how it led to it, man. I mean, my second year as a realtor, I hit EXP icon status, which is like a pretty high level status at the company where basically if you hit that status, they give you back your entire cap in the form of discounted stock. And once I kind of earned that award, I think people really saw, not only just locally in my town, but the bigger network of people around the country kind of saw that I was really doing something good. And like you said, I just had a lot of people starting to reach out to me, asking me for help and things like that. And so I just figured, hey, I've been I've been in coaching with Tom Ferry for a very long time. And, if I can give back a little bit of what I've learned and make it a little bit more affordable for people, and maybe just offer some insight as to being newer into the business instead of it being very seasoned agent, that I could just kind of help some people out. And so it's not really anything that I'm really doing at a very high scale. Because again, I've just found that it's tough to invest into other people because, they don't invest in themselves, and that makes it really hard to be a coach. I guess as a whole, if your coaching clients are changing their goals and giving up on their goals in a month, that's tough for me because I'm really pouring into these people. And but no, I mean, ultimately I did it just because I feel like I can really help some other people, just give them some very good information without having to go through this whole thing. And ultimately, most of the people that I coach have reached out to me directly. I don't really go after people saying, hey, do you want to be my coaching client?
Yeah. Now, is it something that, like I know a lot of, mega producers out with EXP, and, they develop coaching for like people that join under them, because we all know how EXP works, and it's a huge win-win, right? So they're able to provide coaching for their downline. Everybody wins, right? Is it something that is really focused on that, or is this something that is, if somebody's not with EXP that's listening to this and they're like, dude, man, like Spencer's a beast. I resonate with his style. I want to go after, expired FSBOs. Like, here's his strategy. But they're with Keller Williams or Remax. It's something that's, open to everybody.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So I do mentor with EXP too. So I'm part of the EXP mentor program. I got qualified for that after I hit the icon status. So I go ahead and do that. And so I have like my people locally that are on my team that actually work with me in a more traditional capacity. I mentor them constantly, like 5-6 days a week almost. It seems like I talk to them. But yeah, I don't build the whole thing around like if you come to my team, then you can get all this great coaching. It's really it mirrors kind of what the Tom Ferry, Mike Ferry system is. 4 coaching calls a month, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, digging into your business plan. What are you needing help with right now? And most of my clients are not at EXP actually.
Yep. Awesome, man. So I got a couple last questions for you, but before we do that, just because we're on this topic, if anybody that's watching and listening to it, they want to reach out to you, they have the interest in your coaching, but also, man, dude, maybe like we're all realtors that are watching this. Maybe they have a referral for your market, or they just want to like continue watching, you following you on this amazing journey. Like, where are the best places for people to do all that at?
Yeah, no, I definitely recommend anybody who's looking to grow their social media presence to check out my pages. You can check out my personal profile or my business profile. If you just type in Spencer McDuffy, it shouldn't be too hard to find. I believe my URL is Spencer B. McDuffy on Facebook, and you can check it out. And I try to post a lot of great content. I do a lot of listing videos and, neighborhood spotlights and things like that. So if you're looking for some ideas to rip off and duplicate, by all means, go check out my Facebook and you can steal some ideas and reuse them. On Instagram, I'm not as active, but I am there. So I think you'll be able to find me on any platform if you just, if you just put my name in.
Cool. And then if they're interested in talking about coaching, just DM you?
Yeah, just shoot me a DM. Yeah, I do a ton on Facebook. Facebook is by far the best way to get a hold of me. Just shoot me a DM.
Cool. And anybody that's watching or listening to this, because I know most of you are listening to this like while you're in your car, while you're working out, whatever. If you just, anytime you guys just go to scroll below into the notes and we'll have links to all Spencer's social media profiles to make it super simple on you. So, all right, dude, just a couple last questions for you. So the first one is, all right, so you got these, coaching and mentor clients, however you want to call it.
Right, yeah.
You got this new expanded role, right? Which, I mean, it's a job, right? It's all time. But then in addition to that, dude, like when you're popping those, 6 deals or whatever it is a month, or it could be much more than that now today, especially with your admin in place. Like, how do you keep all this together, man? Because you also got a life outside of real estate too.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely helpful that my girlfriend is as a part of my business. She's a licensed realtor. So she's my full-time transaction coordinator. She's my full-time assistant. So whenever I need something, it's hugely valuable to be able to just shoot her an email. I can even just leave the email blank, just forward in her attachment. And after a lot of training, about 1.5 years of her doing this, she was able to figure out what stuff, man, and we're rocking and rolling. So that helps tremendously. And that's why I'm saying you can't underestimate how valuable having a good admin on your team is, even if it's not your girlfriend. You got to get somebody, because your time will be so much better spent when you're not filling out contracts and updating amendments and all that kind of stuff. As far as keeping everything together, I hate to say it, but honestly, I don't feel like it's that hard. I feel like I just do the things that I'm supposed to do every day. And as long as I do that, I just let the rest take care of it. And if I start to see that, my listing appointments are dropping too far down and I'm not consistently setting listing appointments, I just try to get back to the basics, get back to the fundamentals that got me here and spend my time, trying to generate listings. But for the most part, I do have a way that I kind of break down my schedule in my day. On Monday, it's like a war day, right? On Monday, I don't do anything except for prospect, literally almost all day long. I don't take appointments on Mondays anymore. That's something that I just eventually got used to. I don't do any Zoom trainings. I don't do any coaching calls. I don't do anything on Mondays except basically from maybe 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. All I'm doing is trying to set listing appointments. And then throughout the rest of the week, I'm trying to do the same thing from probably 8 to 2 in the afternoon, just trying to set listing appointments. So I design my whole life and my whole business around prospecting and lead follow-up, because if we can't time block that and everything else, anything can happen after that. For me, after about 2 p.m., if I've done my prospecting, it's a successful day. Whether I've set a listing appointment, taken a listing, put something under contract, it doesn't matter to me. If I'm doing that 8 to 2, then hey, we're good.
Yep. No, I love it, dude. Love it, man. So last question for you. I know we're going long on time here, dude, but all right, if Spencer today could go back and have a conversation with Spencer 2-3 years ago, whatever that gap was when you first entered the industry, knowing everything you know now today, and give yourself 2 pieces of advice that you wished you would have known, that you felt like would just have fast forwarded this success trajectory on, what would those be?
Man, I could do a lot more than 2, I bet. But I would say number 1, I wish I would have implemented a better CRM faster. It blew my mind that follow-up could text from within the platform. As simple as that is, and as basic as that is, it just wasn't anything that I had ever caught on to. And the other CRMs that I played around with a little bit, they were just a little bit too intimidating. I never really got the hang of them, but I didn't continue to look for something that would, give me what I needed, but I could also understand and use. And finally, I kind of found Follow Up Boss and found how valuable that is. But yeah, the fact that I ran my business for 2 years without a CRM, it is just so silly looking back on it in time, but it worked for me. And I think the simplicity of the way that I had my mindset and the way that I was running everything, it was just enough, because I wasn't trying to follow up with leads that were not going to buy for a year. So they weren't leads to me. They didn't need to be tracked or followed up with. I was really only going for the shortest term business possible to get the result that I was looking for. So I didn't need a huge follow-up system, but I do think I missed the boat tremendously by not getting a lead generation or getting a CRM. I'd say the second thing, which is what we were just talking about, is investing in marketing. Marketing is so scalable, and I wish when I was brand new, I would have just taken maybe like 20-25% of my paycheck and just invested it into some form of inbound lead generation, because I was so hell-bent on just being an outbound prospector and thinking this is the way that the big boys do it, that once I started doing inbound marketing, I was like, wow, this is easy. Like, the leads come to me now. This is really crazy. And so I wish I would have just invested in some other types of systems or marketing that would have brought leads to me, because if I can get in front of somebody, I'm usually pretty good at converting them. But I was just spending all my time for so long just listening to the phone ring, no one picking up, and just trying to figure out how to get in front of me. I didn't realize it was so easy to just get people to come to me instead.
Yep. Yeah, dude. And the cool thing about it is a lot of people think of marketing or like online lead gen, let's just say as an example, is, like, I guess where I'm going with this is that can't apply to expireds, can't apply to FSBOs. It applies to any niche, right? It's just about attracting versus chasing. And chasing, you're always going to have that capacity because you're trading time for money, right? Versus, if you want people coming to you, okay, well, how can I get expireds coming to me? How can I, right? And it's a game changer because it allows you to scale at such a huge level, man. And dude, Spencer, man, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to be here, man. This has been freaking amazing, dude. You dropped so much gold, man. And dude, it's an honor. I truly appreciate you being on here, man.
Hey, no, man, I appreciate you, man. I've been watching the show for a very long time, and I can say, without flattery or anything like that, that GSD Mode is one of the major reasons why my business catapulted so fast, is because I was listening to you and the guests that you have onto the show that share all the knowledge. And I always try to live by, the thing that you say, which is, the knowledge without the implementation is the start of delusion, or something along those lines. Yep. So every time when I listen to that, I'm like, okay, all I need is one nugget. I don't need to know everything. I just need to know one new thing. Let me go try it out, see how it works, and then we'll take it from there. I'll learn the next new thing tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I love it, man. It truly means a lot. Appreciate your support. And those watching and listening with what Spencer just said, it just that deep understanding. I know every podcast with this, but information without implementation is truly the start of delusion. Information is no longer power. It's taking that information, implementing it, taking action on it. That gives us the power to create the life that we know we want and deserve. And Spencer shared so many amazing piece of advice. As he just said, take something that you learn, even if it's one thing, take something that you learn, go out there, take action on it, implement on it, so you can go out there and again, create the power to go out there in your life to create the life you know you want and deserve. And thank you for all your support. Thank you guys for being here. Truly means a lot. Keep kicking ass, and we'll see you next time. Peace. I hope you enjoyed this GSD Mode podcast episode. Now make sure you get shit done and smash that subscribe button now.